I'm here in the garden harvesting some abundance climbing beans that are kind of semi-dried on this wigwam, and I'm doing this to save seed for next year, of which there's going to be a lot of seed here. And one of the things that we want to get from our garden is obviously food, and we're always looking as gardeners, I don't know about you, but I'm always thinking, how can I get more food from this space? Well, it turns out there's actually a lot of crops or additional harvests that common crops provide that give you extra food. So there might be things that you're growing in your garden right now that you don't actually know are edible, and it's a real simple way to instantly increase the productivity of food coming from your garden. If you want to support the work that we're doing on this channel and beyond to help as many people grow their own food as possible, the best way to do that is grab your gardening supplies from hughesgarden.com. So that's everything such as tools, seeds, my books, Vigo garden beds and my own cold frames. The first thing you might not know that you can actually eat is this. This is purple sprouting broccoli leaves, but you can also eat cauliflower leaves, kohlrabi leaves, Brussels sprout leaves. You can just treat them a bit like a kale. So I'd strip them off the stem like that, so you can remove the tougher part. And then you've got this that you can chop, cook, saute, for example. It's just a nice thing that you can enjoy. Quickly on the subject of brassicas, which are just so productive in many different ways, one of my favourite harvests in the garden is kale flower shoots. I'm next to some kale here. It's the wrong time of year. Usually you let them over winter and then they bring this amazing plethora of flower shoots around March, April, May time to enjoy. But you're not just limited to kale flower shoots. One of the tastiest things I've ever eaten is the flower shoots of red cabbage, but there's other things, for example, pak choi and also swede. Swede, also known as rutabagas, also have another extra harvest, and that's their leaves. Just like a normal brassica, you can see it looks a bit like the purple sprouting broccoli. These are so nice to enjoy over autumn and winter, and if you leave some of the Swedes in over winter, in spring they send up a new flourish of leaves which you can treat as a nice leafy green. Next up is a crop that has really surprised me, and it's quinoa, and we're getting closer to the harvest stage for the seed or the grain. But the thing that I've learned recently that is so delicious is the quinoa leaves are edible. This grows so fast, it absolutely surprised me, but the leaves are so tasty, and also because they're kind of like a bit of a succulent feeling, they're really nice raw, chopped up into salads, but you can also cook them down. One thing that we did recently was we added them in, mixed them into a Spanish tortilla, which is absolutely delicious. And when you cook them, they actually smell of quinoa. So this is an absolute must to enjoy. Similar crop to quinoa is amaranth, which looks stunning, but its leaves, especially the young leaves, are also edible, something to enjoy. And with this Amaranthus crutenus, it's a nice way to add a nice bit of colour to your salads. Butcher and carrots are two things that gardeners love to grow. Obviously the roots are very tasty, but also the leaves. This is a beetroot leaf, and you can see that it's a little bit like chard because they are in the same family. This is absolutely delicious. Carrot tops as well, you can chop them up, you can make a pesto. Again, it's another alternative crop. If things are a little bit empty in the larder and you need something, this can be really useful. Radish is a crop that gives you 4 different types of harvests. Obviously you've got the root, you've got the flowers, which are absolutely delicious, you've got the leaves, you've also got the seed pods, which I think, even though they're right at the end of the chain in terms of the harvest lifespan of a radish plant, I think they're the tastiest because they really pop, they taste so good. There's lots of ways that you can cook and use them and pickle them, but growing radish and actually letting them flower is one of the best things you can do, and it also helps to extend the radish season in terms of flavour. You've still got that nice fiery crisp flavour, but in all sorts of different forms. A quick tip if you're growing runner beans and you're struggling to keep up with all of the harvests that are happening right now in the garden is to let your runner beans dry, because you can use dried runner beans in a lot of cooking, for example soups and stews. All you need to do is give them a really good soak, usually overnight, and then you can use them just like a kidney bean, for example. I think that one of the most exciting extra or alternative harvests from a crop is from onions, and it's onion leaves. One of the things that's really nice to do whilst your onions is growing, especially if you're growing a lot, is you can just take off a couple of leaves and you can just treat these like a spring green, so you can chop them up finely to garnish things or use them in cooking. The other thing you can do as well, which I've seen Liz Orab share about, is you can actually cut them up and freeze them. So when you're harvesting your onions, you can cut up your onion leaves, freeze them, and that's a really useful staple onion type flavour over winter. I have a courgette plant in front of me, and usually when you think of courgettes or zucchinis, we think of the fruit. There's two other ways that you can eat this plant. The more common one is actually, this is a male flower, which isn't going to turn into a female fruit, which is something you can add raw into salads. A nice one that people like to do is to stuff them and then pan fry them, because the petals crisp up really nicely. But the other thing that you can do with courgettes and also pumpkins is their leaves are edible, and you might think, hang on a minute, aren't they spiky? But if you cut them down, it takes away the spikes. Two very tasty additional harvests are from both field beans and broad beans, as in their tops. So this is a field bean that's grown, and you can eat this top whole, which tastes really nice and fresh. And especially at this time of year, or in spring, or when you're taking off the tops, it's something that you can enjoy. And in the same spectrum of this harvest is pea shoots. So when you're growing peas outside and the plants are growing, feel free just to help yourself to a few of the pea shoots, because as the plants are growing, that's going to encourage them to bush out and become a bit more of a sturdy, high yielding plant. So it's something you might want to do anyway, and it's very tasty. Before I share my absolute favourite key alternative or additional harvest that a garden can offer, a lot of you wonder what happens to all the food that is grown from this garden. Well, actually, there's a great resource. My colleague Sam has just written a book that you can pre-order and support our crowdfunder, called The Nature of Food, which celebrates the 4 seasons of harvest that have come mainly using this garden to show you how to make some of the most amazing meals without needing any kind of technical skills or materials or equipment. Give it a look. If you want it before Christmas, there's a link down below, and I think it's such a great resource that every gardener needs on their bookshelf if they want to truly celebrate the harvest from their space. October and November are pretty quiet months apart from harvesting in the garden, with exception to garlic. And garlic gives you so many different additional harvests. And this video here you need to check out, because it's going to influence the way that you plant garlic this year, and it's going to also show you why, for example, you should harvest garlic in May and all of the different ways of enjoying it. So check it out.